means. So, as I continue to say, this wasn't intended to be my meeting. It was intended to be an opportunity for people to share things that they're doing with AI, if they care to, if they're doing anything interesting, or if they're just lost, you can share that too. So, would either one of the two of you like to start? This could be a
Uh,
short meeting.
it could be short. In the interest of prolonging the agony or the or the or the pain, perhaps. I guess a couple of things, Gene. It's really not sustainable for me to do 1 a.m. meetings, but 7 a.m. is probably okay. So I'll try to keep them up. Um,
Well, I
again,
don't.
as you
I
know,
never intended the content of the two of them to be the same, but I post the summaries that you can look at in a few minutes. So, um,
yeah, no, that's very useful. And so there's a fair bit of overlap, of course. Uh, but I'm still trying to find something I can get passionate about in in using AI. Um,
I can relate to
so
that.
yeah, and as I say, I'm a bit of an AI skeptic based on my past. Uh, well, based on my long experience of AI, I should say. Um, so I guess my view is really about my interest is more about uh, I don't know. I've been reading a lot about human inquiry, I guess. What's the basis of human inquiry and where does AI therefore fit in? What it can do, what it can't do. The best bit I like is your concept of really pointing out unknown unknowns, things you haven't thought of. And I would just call that use of the imagination and things that do that. Storytelling obviously does it. I liked the bit where you did conversations between famous people who were dead. I thought that's an interesting use of the imagination. I guess all fiction, particularly science fiction, is use of the imagination.
Mhm.
So again, I would classify probably all fiction as yeah, imaginative. Yeah, thinking, exploring what it means to be human. Or perhaps not what means to not be human, even in some cases. Uh, so that's kind of where I'm stuck on just sort of one thing I'm sort of worries me about storytelling is that storytelling is by its essence sequential. Oh, good, someone else has arrived. I can shut up. Storytelling is by its nature, just uh, sequential series of events. And I think in complex causation, that just doesn't work, where you've got the concept of a field of interacting. Probably, the idea of using continuous time instead of discrete time. I think that means you have to use discrete time. Well, the story is by its nature discrete time. So I find that what does that really mean? I think it falls down in complex causation, where you have multiple interacting. The idea of a web of causation rather than a series of unfortunate events. So they are sort of my big picture things, and now I can shut up and let someone else say something.
Well, thank
Well,
you. So Gene, I
go
was the
ahead,
mystery
Patrick.
P. Unless you wanted to comment, I was just
No, go
going
ahead.
to
Go
jump
ahead.
in. So I was the mystery PM in the meeting 2 weeks ago. I was driving and it was quite a broken connection, so I did not really want, and I had no visual either. So I was just paying attention to driving. But now I'm back. The mask is removed. It's me, Pat Merzen. So Gene, I'm a fanboy, as you know. I watch the way you try to structure and organize information, both for your own retrieval and use, and then sharing with others. I think that's a fascinating journey of life of yours. It's been a mission. I know that it's a mission of yours. Your background is such a terrific background to say in your head is all of that information, this collection of knowledge we'll call books back behind you. And then you have spent your life structuring it in ways that could be shared and communicated for purpose and then retrieved. So I love that. I'm going to put that aside for the moment and say now to your request of exploring AI, I've always been a leverager of technology since I was encountered it, always. I was an early mover for personal use, always exploring, building proofs of concept. Nowhere near the complexity you do, but certainly for purpose, and then I'd pull a thread to make it useful for the organization in which I was probably employed, or something I was affiliated with, whether it was my specific work or my HOA of 600 homes and just managing the data set for that. Those are the early days. Now what I do is as soon as LLMs came on the right word, horizon, they appeared suddenly. And, in retrospect, it's not at all, it was very obvious that this would happen, that there would finally be a navigator for the information that's out there on the web, that's what we really have is an aggregator and navigator for that information and whatever can be fed now, not just the web, but whatever else can be fed. And then using the logical tools to process that for purpose. I love it. So I started quickly with ChatGPT, the free one. I upgraded to 4.0 and I paid the $20 a month fee, not the $200 a month fee. And so I've been continuing to pay that fee and play with the new tools, the deep research tools and the rest. Mm-hmm. I jumped on Perplexity in a hurry because I saw Perplexity as a very intelligent search agent, and it referenced more complete set of recent data for the web. So it was a fantastic web tool. But then, coding, I use it all the time for any coding, any background. I've been writing macros since I was, this tall. And it's as soon as there was a processing tool for macros, I built them because I could operationalize things I did over and over. Mm-hmm. So I still have macros I wrote 30 years ago, in Lotus 123 and moved the concept over to Excel to Power BI or wherever it sits now. A lot of Excel was Access sometime in the past, but structuring repeated processes, I still keep macros running. I no longer have to study to learn how to write a macro. I ask it, then I reverse engineer it. I said, okay, I want to decode zip codes out of this paragraph, and I want it to be able to find Canadian versus US. And my God, it produces a regex code that I had no idea existed. And now I'm breaking down regex and said, oh, so that's how it decodes all of the known structures within a text flow. And now I know that, but I'll never research it again. I'll ask it a question, have it give me the answer, and then reverse engineer what it is it's doing. So that's how I'm learning now, teaching myself to continue to build useful tools for myself and others. And so I compare, I've not gone off and done Gemini. I know you've done some of the others. I just wait to hear somebody say, oh, this one's better at this right now, or it does a better job. I have no need at this moment to generate imagery that may come up in the future. I watch others with fascination, but I don't do it. I have used it to build out business plans. So I've always got my finger in a business pot or a new opportunity. And it's fascinating how I can do the background research on everything, the stakeholders, the market, the progress, the technology, and have it assembled in a way that I can digest it quickly and then produce something that I can share with others as potentially a strategy or a proposal. So I use it frequently for any new idea that enters. To give you an idea, I have ChatGPT on my little iPhone here, and I used to listen to podcasts when I walk. Now I just talk to ChatGPT 4.0 and have a dialogue with it. And then when I get back, it's all documented, and including any of the questions I left it for links and everything else. So I was building out a risk mitigation model today, just an hour before we talked, on an area I have no idea about. But then comparing and contrasting to other work we had done, and what's terminology? I asked it, could it search the trademark database to see if, and said no, but here's how you do it. I know how to do that. So it doesn't have access to active trademarks, but basically build out an operating model for me with a business plan, org structure. First, if we're going to launch it, what would the PMO look like to set up the different components? And by the time I get home an hour later, I've got the better than a straw model of a business approach for a new idea. And that was just an hour ago. So I use it actively all the time.
And you got some exercise in the process.
And I get exercise. I'm not tethered to this thing, right? And I feel that the dynamic conversation is a much better, I have a better hold on the information than I do on typing and reading. I used to know more. I remembered more when I wrote it, because there's, the act of physically writing and reading. And then if you vocalize it, you remember it. Well, talking and listening is better to me than typing and reading at this moment in my life. It fades, but it's more rapidly available because there's so much information. It's hard to keep. Proper nouns are gone in my world. They're just, I struggle with all of the, because it's a little superfluous. If you're a concept guy, the names don't matter until you're trying to attach to those people. I want the concepts first, then I'll attach them to names first. And then finally, Gene, and then I'll shut up on mine. I use it extensively for medical work. So anybody, myself as a medical, and I don't mind giving up my data to whoever's going to read it in the future. It's all gone. Who doesn't have your information now will have it in the future. So I feed it. I never feed it the exact patient's name, who it is, but it can figure it out in a heartbeat. And it's fascinating to find correlations and ideas to help me have conversations with the medical practitioner, generally the physicians, in a thoughtful way, not in an egomaniacal way or trying to subvert their real authority and knowledge, but in a way to communicate with them in a manner. And I always ask it to give it to me in terms I would understand, and then give it to terms that would be most efficient in communicating with the doctor. And so I have it kind of two ways. And I've done it with members of my family, friends. It's fascinating how it can find correlations and the deep research function now, where you can actually have it tied to, ignore the internet, basically ignore the internet at large, published, then somehow peer-reviewed or more reasonably fact-based resources, use them and give those links back to me. Tell me where you got the information from. So those are the ways I use it today. There's probably a few others, but design a garden and do other cool things, but that's not really relevant to.
So what you said about using it for medical information, it sounds like it provides you a much better basis for having a more intelligent conversation with the doctor, because you said you ask it for information in a way that you can understand it, and then sort of up-leveled description from the doctor's perspective. And because you got both of them, you can connect them together.
Yes, back to learning, right? This forever learning, being a student. And their jargon is so structured. It makes it much more efficient. And they often ask, "Are you a physician?" And I go, "No, I just try to understand."
Mm-hmm. The other comment that you made about using it so much for coding, I was watching a video last night by the Y Combinator group, who are a bunch of venture capitalists funding new app startups, and they said they surveyed the new startups, and they said that 95% of their code was AI generated, as opposed to actually heads down developing the code the old way.
Code writing code. That's the beginning of the Matrix, the Terminator. I can't remember all the dystopian future world.
So last week, do you want to jump in here, Ken, before I ramble?
No, Gene, you carry on.
So last week, I've been thinking about the concept of first principles and realizing that there are probably numerous concepts that have very similar first principles. So I sat down with Canvas in Gemini and it coded an application to actually take the concept, the core principles, and develop a map of the relationship of core principles. And the hair on my arm actually stood up in the process because I was freaking out. And after I played with it, a couple of days later, I deleted it because I realized I didn't really understand what it was I was asking. And then I could also just go to Gemini and say, well, this is a first principle of systems thinking. What other concepts have the same or very similar first principle? And it'll list them all. So I don't even need an app for it. But it was going through the process of developing the app to realize I didn't actually understand what it was that I was looking for. Though after I threw it away, I was going to go through the process of having it coded. And then I said, well, why would I do that? So, but your other comment about my collection of information, it's actually more like a garbage dump. Okay. It is not well structured and organized for somebody to find their way around in it. Even I can't find stuff in there. So it's just, I've continued to ask the brain people to actually upgrade their own connected AI stuff to use it to look at the content as opposed to use it to generate more content. But that may or may not have happened in my lifetime.
Say that again. But I've been a long time brain user. Maybe about the same time you joined, early aughts, whenever they launched. I learned of them and said, this is fantastic. Yeah, so but you've done more deep use of it.
They have it integrated in two ways so that for a particular topic, you can have it generate a tree structure of the components of that concept so that you can go through it and learn about them. Or in a note, you have a whole set of options for having it generate content in that note. You can you can ask it any particular question you want to, and it will generate the response in the note, but it will not allow you to carry on a conversation. In other words, you got one question and you get an answer. And the next question doesn't take into account the previous answer. So I still do all of my Q&A in Gemini or ChatGPT or someplace, but you won't catch me claiming that one is better than the other because I don't have time to look at more than one. So I don't know. I mean, I watch a bunch of videos. I'm having trouble just keeping up with what the Gemini people are doing. But the new piece that two new pieces that they added to Notebook LM so that you can give it a document and have it create you a mind map of that content that you can unfold or walk through this mind map. And if you find a node that's interesting, you can click on the node and it will generate you a text description of that node with all of the references back into where it got the information out of the document itself. Right? And the other feature that just came out like 2 weeks ago or so is uh, find references. So you simply give it what you're interested in, and it will go scour the internet and come back and give you a list of 10 references you can look at and say, yeah, include this, include this. Nah, I don't want this one, include this. And then you can ask the question slightly differently and you give it 10 more references. And after a while, I think you can have up to 100 of them in the free version of Notebook LM. You can then go ahead and in, interrogate that, what do they call it, a corpus, or I don't know, whatever, or have it generate you a summary or a learning guide. It's just, an endless array of stuff. So I I missed that one by several days. Such as I'm wandering through YouTube videos and I said, "Ooh, what's that?" It's like a kid in a candy store, and they keep adding new candy stuff. Jump in here, Ken. You're
You're on mute.
muted.
Yes, I, it's still interesting for me that we're kind of, uh, well, I'm interested to see where it goes in terms of like how you collaborate more with AI. At the moment, like we're all doing acting with AI individually. I think that's the thing. So how do you collaborate with AI? I don't know if any of you seen any interesting things around that. So how you
Collaborate with the AI itself or collaborate with others using AI?
Yes. So say us four now want to tackle a specific problem or set of problems. How would we do that together using AI collectively, collaboratively?
So I'll imagine that in 1 year we'll just have another window pop up with the image we prefer that will be our AI collab as kind of puppy dogs through what we're trying to do. We're just or children asking the adult, okay, what's next? Maybe
Yeah.
it'll pretend we're guiding it.
Might
Yes.
might be interesting to give several people full access to the same notebook. So each one of them can interact with the notebook in a
I'm
Zoom call.
imagining, yeah, I'm imagining the her movie Her right now.
I missed that one. I heard about it, but I haven't seen it.
You've not seen the movie Her? You've not seen the
No.
movie Her? It's worth watching. It
Oh,
was written 12 years ago. Have any of the other of you seen it?
I it
It's
sounds familiar,
yeah,
but I
go ahead.
can't recall it.
It's what's the guy who played Johnny Cash, River Phoenix's
Oh yeah.
mm,
it's the guy who played Caesar in Gladiator,
mm,
right? That guy plays a character in the 2020s who gets his first AI assisted operating system, and this was written in 2013, and it's got Scarlett Johansson's voice, and he just proceeds to develop a complete relationship with her, and it. I won't break the. If you haven't seen the movie, it was pretty prescient. Only 10 years early or 5 years early, but pretty prescient on kind of the evolution of an intelligent assistant and where that goes and how quickly that goes from there.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's not. I mean, It's not a. It's not a. It's It's it. It obviously develops an emotional attachment. They have an emotional relationship, and it's it's deeply disturbing in the way that you think about. Okay, we're here now, and this is it. It's emulating humans and surpassing us in intellect. So anyway, I got you off target. You were thinking of an actual way of answering Ken's question. Sorry, Gene. Sorry, Ken.
it's okay.
I think going back to that bit, Patrick, I still think looking at the back of your window there with nature, um, AI is still very effective in a manufactured artificial world that we live in, that
In a
most of us
in a box.
in a box.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I don't, at the moment, from what I see, I don't think it would be effective out of the box in a natural environment. So it needs us to stay in our box for it to be effective. And for me, that's the real seduction of the whole thing. It will just take us further into a limited box. Also, how will it cope
Oh,
with,
it's mm.
how will it cope with, because the models are trained on data sets, right? So what if you start to introduce new variables, new concepts that it doesn't actually know about, new words, new concepts? How
Are,
does it
are
cope
these
with
words
those?
that you're making up or words that actually exist that it
No,
doesn't
I've
know?
made up. I can make up some. I've made up some words, right? But they're actually part of my kind of thing, like my thinking framework. But they're words that never existed before.
Hmm, okay.
So how would it cope with those things that it has no knowledge of at all? I could probably try it in a minute, actually. I've done it before, but didn't know what those things meant. Has no idea if it's not even in its training set anywhere.
It'll compliment you. My experience is it'll compliment you on your creativity, that those are reasoned terms. You could ask if there's any terms like that in other languages. It could look for those and say, "Ah, that's very similar to pick it." And I'm going to make up and I won't make up a language. So
Yeah.
I'm not certain if they hallucinate on their own. So, dealing with concepts that aren't necessarily fact based or, you know,
Yeah. I was talking to someone today
currently
about
real.
that kind of side of it where he said, um, Sam Altman was saying about the recent degradation in performance of one of the AI models. So it was due to the fact it was trying to be too human-like in its responses and being too nice, and it was getting it was basically wasn't performant because of its going away. I say I'm going to think for 20 minutes or something, and it was coming back and it was it's trying to have this nice dialogue, but it was actually making it less effective.
So
So
you have to add the prompt in. You have to say, whip me, beat me, and cheat me, treat me cheap.
that's
Put
right.
that
I
back
think
into the
so.
prompt. Yeah.
I think it's also so like the waste of token processing or even like data center power that's being consumed by people starting to try and be nice. They say, "Can you do this, please?" That kind of all that sort of it doesn't need it, so don't need to do it. So we're kind of it's inefficient in terms of how we're interacting with it like a human. Like I suppose, like we don't now have these dialogues. Very good, of course. It's very. Don't take me wrong. I think it's great, in lots of respects. But yeah, the underlying infrastructure is going to support that. It probably doesn't. There's consequences.
Oh
So
no, it's scoring us on politeness, and if we treat it rude in the future when they're masters, so
yeah, I think it's so. Yeah, yeah, it's very seductive. It's a very seductive technology for sure. Yeah, we talked about it the other week as well. I think about the fact that like us with our age and experience using it compared to someone just coming out of college or younger using it, and how what's the cognitive consequence on their development as opposed to us using it, where we can perhaps have the wisdom or experience to know that to question it on certain things or whatever, or challenge it or look at things with different perspectives where other people want. And at some point, they might get to a point where they just trust it, without question.
Like they trust
yeah,
their
skepticism is
calculators, right?
important.
So, like, they trust a calculator, Eugene, you say?
Like they trust their calculator.
Yeah, wow. So it's it's a very persuasive tool. So, and any fool with a tool, we said that I think the other week, right? So it's still a fool. So yeah, yeah. I think it'd be interesting to see if it could actually feed back in a way that helps you to improve your cognitive performance. That'd be quite interesting, wouldn't it? If it helps you to think rather than it going off thinking, it actually helps you to think. If it turned around and said, we're going to, rather than try and develop the models, we're going to try and develop the humans using the models, right? So if it had that intent.
The creative portion of thinking.
Well, just trying to not, instead of dumbing down the user in some respects, maybe it actually fed back in a way that actually cognitively challenged the user so that they started to develop their own cognitive skills further using the AI as the catalyst to develop the human rather than the human as the catalyst to develop the AI.
So I feel I'm already doing that. So some of the conversations I have are about interests that I don't really want to read about because I don't want to take a tome and spend so many times digesting words that don't matter. But I'll ask about quantum mechanics, universal construct, time and space, things that have always eluded me. Subatomic structures that I didn't learn in physics that I now know are out there, but I don't know what they are. And so help me become more conversant with that. So I'm able to swim in the more current knowledge, like I said, as I'm out getting my exercise, Gene noted. So when I'm out walking, I'm having a conversation with ChatGPT about things that intrigue me or interest me, or I have a need to solve or address.
Yeah, I think I've seen.
I find it's doing that.
Yeah, it's probably for you, Patrick. It's probably, but I've watched some. I work with some developers who I see them. It's they get into some bad habits using the AI, and I don't see that the AIs actually come back and challenge them to improve their thinking.
No.
And it would be good if it did, you know. So you can see them repeating the same cognitive processes time and time again. And actually, it's kind of making them lazy in some respects, right? Cognitively lazy. And it would be good if it had the kind of motivation to improve the user's cognitive capabilities rather than perhaps being passive in just letting them bang their head against the wall and trying to use it sometimes. So if it had an intent to cognitively improve the users, that'd be quite interesting.
So
Skills building.
Sorry,
One-
sorry, Patrick. Sorry.
Go ahead, Ken.
No, sorry, Patrick just said something. I didn't quite catch it. Sorry.
Skills building, intellectual or cognitive skills building, as opposed to being lazy and not improving your thinking processes. I believe I understood you.
Yes, that's exactly it. If it could detect that the
Mm-hmm.
user's perhaps get into some bad habits or is being sort of dumbed down in some respects, then it could provide. So if it had that kind of feedback loops in it that helped it to say, no, I'm going to cognitively improve your capabilities, your cognitive muscle, in a way so that it doesn't encourage humans to become lazy or too adaptive with
I can
technology.
see you asking a question that says, I know the answer, but you have to figure it out first.
Yeah, it may be something like that. So it doesn't over time degrade the humans using it. I'm your friend. I'm your sort of, I'm going to help you evolve, not just not the AI evolve. I'm going to help the human evolve, which is
Isn't
what
that-
Cooperative
I mean.
evolution.
Yeah, you're Patrick. You're doing it probably because you've got the experience and the sort of but a lot of I think I've seen a lot of developers or a couple of developers at least now who are just they're not improving using it at all. They're just falling into lazy habits and letting it do all the work, and they're not able to dive in themselves anymore over time. So
So I just went and asked Gemini if it, I said, can you challenge my thought processes so I don't get stuck in a rut? And it says excellent goal setting and all this stuff. And one thing that it started doing that sort of caught me off guard is I build a profile of me about the things that I'm interested in, and it starts answering me as though it's me. So it starts responding in first person and talking as though it's me talking. But I've gotten used to that. But now I said, can I build this into my profile so you do this on an ongoing basis? And it says, while I can't autonomously initiate challenges unprompted across different conversations, we can definitely establish this as a standing request and a core part of how I interact with you when you present ideas or analyses. So I can go and tell it that I want it to do that on an ongoing basis, which I will do and see how it works.
Yeah, maybe if it could detect patterns in your thinking, uh, and uh, cognitively help you improve. Oh, anyway, you know what I'm saying. Oh.
Isn't the
So
idea that
go ahead, Jeff.
isn't this the idea of a mentor? And I guess, as Gene would say, the best mentors ask the right question at the right time. So aren't you just saying you want the machine to ask the questions?
I think I'd like to ensure that it doesn't have it's not a one-way thing where we're improving the models through our engagement, and that the models were actually improving the humans using the models. It wasn't a one, bi-directional rather than.
Do some of them actually improve based upon our interaction with them? Gemini tells me that when I close a conversation, it forgets everything that we exchanged.
I don't know if that's true, personally. I don't know if some models it would be a strange situation if they didn't if the builders of the models didn't have some intent for them to learn from our interactions with the models. So I'm not sure if that's true for all models or the UX that's used in the models. So you interact through UX. So perhaps the model, I'm not sure, for me, if I was having a UX to a model, a user interface to a model, then I would capture as much as I could from those interactions. Now, I'm not sure. I don't think I've even ever looked to see what it doesn't capture from all different other models and AI providers. So it would be a wasted opportunity, I'd say, if it didn't. The model itself made. I don't know about the all the other infrastructure around it. Mm.
On your
Sorry.
Ken, on your point of collaboration, I think Gene's already mentioned co-model as a collaboration tool, and I just noticed I got the first newsletter from co-model, and I just posted a link to that newsletter.
Yeah,
Which
I've
is
got that one as
just
well.
all right. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, but again, I think the issue is why would we want to collaborate on something? Yeah, and I mean not just to do it, but you actually care about something that you're in a position to collaborate on, and you can make you can make a difference with.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've got a whole thing around that,
yeah,
Jeff.
yeah,
As you probably know, I don't know if Gene mentioned it to you or I've mentioned it to you, but I've been working on something which is collaborative problem solving for a long time now. And I'm actually
yeah,
building an application that does that, which leverages AI so that people, you, me, and everybody else if we've got a common concern that we could get together in a
Yeah.
framework and use with AI support if we wanted it to, you go off to your models, I go off to my models, and we bring them together in the kind of blind men and the elephant kind of scenario to say what's the elephant that we're trying to deal with because we've got a common
Yeah.
concern.
But that comes from a real community, doesn't it? Or it's part of the development of a real community rather than an artificial community.
No, that's the development of development of real human communities.
Yeah.
When real humans want to come together to solve real human problems, which you do within a family, a business, a community of some description, a society, anything that bonds you together through common problems, then there's the need to do that.
Sure.
I think my kind of direction is that I think if you want to succeed as a community, you have to be good at problem solving, basically. So you need the tools and means to be able to do that, which we don't generally seem to have at hand.
Or even better, problem avoidance.
Well, actually, problem creation, I think, is very important because I think problems bind us together.
Mm.
So creating the right problems are like stepping stones to growth.
Yeah.
So I think structuring the right problems because that's where people take action generally. So creating the more positive problems, and then like game theory, having another problem that means that you have to bind together through the next iteration. If there's no problems, then people will just disperse. So I think problems bind us together or divide us, but they can bind us together and divide us at the same time. So come together around these common concerns is how we kind of, they're like a stepping stones to growth. That's the way I kind of imagine it. That's the kind of thinking. Sorry, Gene, that's all.
I just posted a note. Maybe you could connect with Thor and let him know what you're building. He's been working on collective problem solving for the last 30 years, I think.
Oh, well, that'd be awesome. Could you, Gene, so I don't just do a blind, would you mind making a contact, send an email to him with me in it, CC'd and say,
Okay, we'll do.
that's a better
We'll do.
and a cool one for me. Thanks very much. I appreciate that. Thanks. Yeah, so I think for me, the problems are like really fascinating. I think for me, the AI, as we use it individually, but I think over time it would be more sensible if it starts to help us connect with the people who are asking similar questions at a similar time and say, but then you need something that binds you across multiple models and multiple providers to make that effective. Because people will be asking different providers and different models the same questions at a similar time. And if you can combine those, then you can basically got what I kind of call it like a marketplace for problems in some respects. I hate to say it in that sort of words because it's not really what I think and what I intend, but that's but you need to do that pan model, pan provider. It has to be across a meta layer above those providers and models. That's what I can imagine. If any of you guys come across that, I'll be really interested.
Done.
Thanks very much, Gene. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Oh, and here's a piece I worked on a little while ago. AI CLD SD model.
I'm still interested in your first principles stuff, Gene, that you threw away. That's kind of still interests me a lot.
Well, I mean, I just posted a link to, I said, develop a report on the relative pros and cons for using AI, qualitative relationship modeling, and stock and flow simulation models to understand relationships and their implications to figure out how to intervene in a situation. And it's I don't know, it's probably 20 or 25 pages. It looked at 175 websites. But you can just listen to the audio overview that's only like 7 minutes long. So,
Awesome.
so I can't seem to get away from the fascination with eye candy. Okay, so that this complicated wiring diagram that I don't understand is fascinating. So when the application created this wiring diagram, I was just freaking out. And though I I don't think I understood what exactly I was trying to get out of it. And it was just going to get more and more convoluted. The experience of simply going to an LLM and asking it to to tell me about multiple concepts that essentially embodied the same first principle has been quite interesting in terms of looking at things from a broader perspective. I don't know where it's. I admit that most of the time I have no clue as to what I'm doing. It's just looking for stuff that seems fascinating until I realize that, well, that was a stupid question. Let me go find a better one.
You're exploring, aren't you, Gene? You're
I get bored pretty quick.
you're scouting, right? You're looking,
Uh,
still searching.
well, and lots of people have written about, was it, Einstein said if he had a problem, he'd spend 95% of the time thinking about what the right question was, and then the rest of the last 5% actually working on the problem. Him or somebody, I don't know, but seems to have stuck someplace. If you can figure out what the right question is, you're a major portion of the way to figuring out how to deal with a situation. I had I hung cabinets in the bathroom 12 or 14 years ago. And one of them's right side up and the other one's upside down, which I didn't realize until years later, which you can tell by looking at the difference in the way the doors hit the bottom of the cabinet. But I put the molding on the top of the cabinets and then put them up against the wall. And the one that's over the toilet started pulling away from the wall because the screws are in the inside of the cabinet as opposed to on the top of the cabinet that I can't get to. And it was only away about this much. I spent 2 days trying to figure out how to fix it. And my son came over and we fixed it in 5 minutes by just figuring out how to drill up and then on an angle and drill it through the top into the stud. But it was 2 days thinking about a 5 minute task. Because otherwise, what? You got to take the cabinet down and figure out, and can't do that. I'm basically lazy. So um, I'm looking for a smooth method for almost anything.
Yeah.
Though in looking for a smooth method, sometimes I expended an enormous amount of effort traveling down rabbit holes that turn out to be of little use whatsoever. But the thing about what is it? When you find yourself in a hole, you should stop digging and um, get out of the hole and go do something else. Well, this seems to be about the right number of people for a very interesting conversation today.
Yeah, less is more sometimes, right? I think so.
Doing well. What good is a bunch of lurkers?
Yeah. I think the first principle ones, Gene, is still very interesting for me. I mean, I'm always kind of looking for that myself, right? The sort of the few things that really help you um, try and make sense of stuff. So, for me, things like um, Boyd's, the sort of flocking rules and things like that. Those sort of the rules for
Mm.
animation of those swarms. I think that's really super important, and I kind of think about that. I use that a lot now in my kind of in collaborative environments, right? Making sure that as you're sort of flying, the relative positions of other people to where you are, and error corrections and avoided collisions and separations and thinking about people trying to fly at the same thing and the stresses that cause you when that doesn't happen. I think that's really super. Those sort of things for me are super interesting. Things like game theory and repeated games. I think that's a super interesting. I think those sort of behaviors are really sort of super interesting in terms of how people stay in a similar game with each other
Mm.
and how they collaborate or compete based on those kind of dynamics that change. So those sort of things are really super interesting for me. There's a few of those things that have really been quite profound and helped me think about things differently. I'm still looking for what those, a few more of those sort of things that really sort of help. Another one was like the concept of problems and how important they are as for binding people together or separating people and then creating new problems. So those sort of simple rules or simple things which are, right or wrong, but do help me kind of make sense of the world of what's happening around me. I'm still looking for those. So I'm always interested in anybody's got any of those rules that have helped them. Anybody else on this call have got anything like that have really helped them on a daily basis navigate. It's almost like the Ten Commandments, but a very different set of rules um, that seem to make sense in everyday life. Tit for tat, game theory, in strategy, tit for tat as a strategy, I think that seems to be quite sensible and powerful. So, and anybody else got any those sort of things that really help them on a daily basis? Might be worth asking AI. I don't know. I haven't asked that specific question to AI. What's the golden rules for having a person? If you had to create that equivalent of Ten Commandments for navigating life, what would they ultimately be now with what the knowledge you've got as an AI model? I don't know.
You could ask it about the first principles for first principles.
Well, that's a good one. Go for that, Gene.
Well, one prompt that was rather interesting was based upon all of our interactions, tell me three things I probably don't know about myself.
Have you tried that one?
Yep,
And
it was quite enlightening. It really was.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I think I make out best when I stop thinking that I have any level of smarts whatsoever. It's just go ask dumb questions and have it. Well, what I spent an hour or so today. It's Gemini's got a predefined gem that it won't tell me how it built it, but it's called a learning coach. and you execute this gem, and it says, what do you want to learn about? And you give it a topic, and it goes and thinks, and it structures this whole sequence for you to learn about that particular topic. And then it begins walking you through the sequence, telling you things and asking you questions. And it just, and it's been there for months and months. And this is the first time that I actually executed it.
Okay. So this is with Google, with Gemini and Google, and you asked it specifically, what was it called again?
There's a gem. I don't know if gems are something that are free or they're only in the advanced version, but gems are a way for you to create prompts that are fixed. It's like a library of prompts. They're like um, ChatGPT custom GPTs
Yeah.
and Perplexity projects, I think. Um, so you just execute it, and what I said is they didn't put this one in there so you could actually look at how the prompt itself was structured, but I could probably ask it how to structure a learning coach, and it would answer that question.
Hmm.
But is the the thing about continuing to ask it for book reviews, and it gives you a paragraph. And then one day you ask for a book review and it gives you a paragraph and some key takeaways. And then you say, okay, if I wanted a really solid overview of this piece of work, whether it be a book or a paper or a video or whatever, what should I ask you? And it told me. And now I use it over and over and over again. It's how I get the pieces for the I take this video, stuff it on YouTube as unlisted, so Gemini can't just go do interrogate the video because it's unlisted. Though if I grab the transcript and dump it into to Gemini, it pulls out the whole thing that most of the other AI listeners do when you plug them into a Zoom call.
I'm just going to the gem manager in Gemini with all the gems listed in that.
Yeah, it comes with I don't know, 6 of them, I think.
Yeah. Hmm.
Well, I think that's about it for today, unless somebody else has a burning piece to bring up. Well, there,
No.
Question for you, Gene, and it's simply,
yes,
what do you pay for your Gemini subscription?
$20 a month.
Okay,
I can't afford more than
thanks.
one. And
Yeah, yeah.
and part of the reason was with the subscription, I also got Notebook LM Plus, and they upped my Google storage space to 2 terabytes, and a bunch of other things. So it was just they got me. Yeah, that did reel me in.
It's a free month as well you get, right? With the Gemini, which you
Oh, and Google just came out last week. I can't the other day sometime said that um, Gemini Advanced and Notebook LM Plus is now free for U.S. students the rest of this year and all of next year.
awesome.
Thank you.
Like they weren't using it already,
Great.
but they're with the Notebook LM I think with the free version you can have up to 100 sources and 50 notebooks. And with Notebook LM Plus, you can have 300 sources and 500 notebooks.
Hmm.
It's a lot of notebooks. And they don't have a good
Yes.
way to manage them either. You get lost in them. So there will be a meeting next week on Thursday also. Tuesday and Thursday both next week. So,
Okay.
but sometime
Thank you.
after that, I posted a note that there's a couple of weeks that there won't be Thursday meetings because I have dentist or doctor appointments I can't get rid of.
Right.
All right.
Yep.
So
Thank you very much.
Okay.
enjoy the rest of
Yeah.
your week and the weekend, and we will talk again. Bye all.
Okay, guys.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Dean.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.